Okay, so I decided to repeat the whole process. So just in case the connection is not very clear. So first thing is step one. There are three steps. There are three steps that we are going to follow. First one is you get the range. Okay, range is simply the highest score minus the lowest score of your given data set. Now, the given data set earlier was the age of the 50 travelers, randomly selected traveler of this particular agency. Now, as we remember, there are 77 travelers, okay, from our data set, this one here. So, the oldest is 77, the one that is encircled, and then 18 is the youngest. So that is our lowest class interval. So you have 77 minus 18. After that, subtracting that one, you have, what was our answer earlier? We have 59, yeah. So you have 59 is our range. So that is the range between the youngest traveler to the oldest traveler for the randomly 50 selected traveler is 59 years old. So we have our range. That's a step 1. Step 2, we will identify now our desired number of classes. Desired number of classes or class intervals. Hold on, it should be classes. Okay, so that's the second step. Now, there are several ways, mostly for what I've learned in high school, during my high school days, it's the teacher who will discuss it. But there are, since when you will do actual research or when you apply this in real life, you don't get somebody to tell you as to what will be your desired number of classes. Now, at least an alternative is there are several ways, but what I am going to introduce this time is using the expression 2 to the power of k should be greater than or equal to n. Take note, n here is our sample size. In our sample size from our given data set, if I may show you our given, this is our given, it says here that there are 50 randomly selected travelers. So that is our sample size, 50. Okay, let me put back our cam. So that is n equals 50. Now, what we're going to do using this expression, we will look for the value of k here that will make the expression 2 to the power of k greater than n. So, which is 2 to the power of, we will think of a number. If we will pick 5, for example, 5 is not greater than 50, correct? Because 2 to the power of 5 is only 32. As 2 times 2 is 4 times 2, that is 8 times 2, that's 16 times 2, that is the fifth exponential form, that is only 32. And 32 is not greater than 50. Then we have to consider 2 to the power of 6. 2 to the power of 6 is indeed greater than 50 because 2 to the power of 6 is actually 64. And 64 indeed, 64 is greater than or equal to 50. So we are going to use now k equals 6. So we are anticipating 6 classes or class intervals. Now after that, the next is step 3 is we will identify our class width. For the class width, which is denoted by I, small I, that is simply I equals the range, okay, of course this one, the range, divided by our K, which is 6. So technically we have 59 over 6. Now we will divide this one. Roughly this is equivalent to 9.83. Okay, that is its value. So you have 9.83. Now what we're going to do here is we will round it up. Round up the value. Meaning to say, when you say round it up or round up, it means to say, well, since there is a decimal point in this value, we will get its next whole number. That's the rule for rounding up. Meaning to say, regardless whether the value here is less than zero point 0.5, then you just have to get the next whole number. That is the rule for rounding up, unlike rounding off. So we will get the next whole number 9.83. The next whole number is 10. The ruling here is we need to have a whole number class with, because that's an interval and we cannot afford to have an interval that is in decimal form. So we have now the three steps. So we have the range, which is 59 years old, between the oldest and then the youngest traveler that was recorded, the randomly 50 travelers recorded by the SJS Travel Agency. And then we identified our desired number of classes or class intervals. We have 6. And also we identify our class width, or the width for each class interval here. We have 10. Okay, as following the whole process. Now, let's begin constructing our class interval. The first column of our frequency distribution table is, of course, our class interval. The first class interval, actually, I already partly done the first part. So, by the way, to start with, for the first class interval known as the lowest class interval, we would start with the lowest score or the lowest entry in our data set. Now, in this case, the 50 randomly selected traveler, the youngest is 18. So, we will start from 18. So, technically, you can do it like the easiest way by counting. So, we start from 18, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. So, we will end with 27 since that is from 18 to 27. That's equivalent to 10. So, that's why you have 18 to 27. Now, this is our first class interval. 18, that's the lowest class limit. We call it lower limit. Lower limit. And then 27 is the upper limit. So you have 18, lower limit, and upper limit. So we have the first class interval. Now to get the next class or the second class interval without doing the counting from your hand, so what you can do is simply, we will just add our I, take note, I'll just write here, our I is 10, that's the class width. Now, to get the next lower limit, okay, our first lower limit is 18. To get the next lower limit, we just simply subtract, or we simply add our class width to our first lower limit to get the next lower limit or the second lower limit. So, 18 plus 10, you have 18, 28 rather. And then you have, that's it. That's how we get the next lower limit or the second lower limit. The second upper limit, the same thing also. We will add our class width to our upper limit of the first class interval. So that's 27 plus 10, you have 37. That is how to set up the class interval. Now, we will continue the process to get the third class interval. So that's simply lower limit, that's 28, plus the width, which is 10, you have 38. And then the same thing also for the upper limit of this interval, that is 37, plus 10, you have 47. Okay? And then, for the next limit, or the next class interval, you have 38. The next lower limit is 48. And then, followed by 57. And then, next interval, you have 58. That's 48 plus 10. That's 58. And then 57 plus 10, you have 67. And then you have the next interval is 50. You have 68 to 77. That is 67 plus 10. That's 77. So you might be asking, when should I stop? Now, you have to go back. We have identified here 6 is our number of classes. Now, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have already the the desired number of classes. So, we should stop because we have already attained the number of classes, the desired number of classes identified earlier. So, we will stop here. Now, just to check here, our lowest score is 18. And then our highest score is 77. In other words, the youngest is 18, the oldest is 77 of the 50 randomly selected travelers of this travel agency. Now, let's check whether the peak and then the minimum, the maximum for this interval are found in our class interval. So we have, first you have, in the first class interval, we have 18 to 27. And hence, our lowest or the youngest traveler is 18 years old, and it's within this interval, the first class interval. So we're that's guaranteed. And then next, if you look at the highest class interval, our oldest traveler is 77 years old. So you notice that it's within the sixth class interval. So in other words, all the 50 ages of the travelers, they were within the six class intervals that we have. The next part that we were going to have is the tally part. This is now the part wherein we will simply tally the traveler's age as to how many travelers fall on the interval 18 years old to 27 years old, how many travelers between 28 years old to 37 years old, the second class interval, so on and so forth. Now, to help us, let me just move first the cam. Okay, this is our age. Now, 18 years old, that's the first traveler, 18 years old. So, for the 18 years old, we will record it here. Okay, wait. That is 18 years old. And then, the second is 24 years old. So, 24 years old is here. And we will continue the process until we will be able to tally all the travelers. So, if I continue, you have 28 is here, 19 is here, and then 27. For easier, then we will just do it like this. Okay, 27. We're done with the first 5 travelers. Let's move to the second 5 travelers. 29 years old. 29 years old is already in the second class interval. And then 34 years old, still in the second. 36 here. 31. And then 36. Still we have 5. And then third, the next 5 traveler is 42 years old. Where's 42? Here. 45. 46. 44. And then 46. So we have the first one. So you notice because actually the table is pre-arranged already. So you notice the scores one. But if the scores are not pre-arranged in the table form, then you just have to go it one by one. But this time it's just simply, you notice it's like the first 5 is in the first class interval, the next 5 is in the second, and then it's because it's pre-arranged in the table. So let's continue with the next 4. 57 years old, 58 is here, and then 60 here, 58 here, 59 years old is here, and then 61 years old is here, 63 years old, 66 years old, 62 years old, 64 years old, and then 67 years old. 70 years old is here already in the last class interval. 77 years old, the oldest. 68 years old, still here. 74 years old is here. And then 37 years old falls on the second class interval. 39 years old falls on the third class interval. 40 years old falls on the third class interval, 38. And then 39 years old is still the same interval. And then 49 years old, 51 years old is here, 52 years old is here, 50 years old the same, and then 51 years old the same. Where's 51 years old? 51 is here, and then 53 years old, 54 years old, 56 years old, 54 years old, then 55 years old, 47 years old is here, and then 48 years old here, 49 years old is, where is 49 years old? Here. 48 years old is here. And then 48 years old is here. Complete. Okay? The next column is we will get now the frequency. For the frequency, or simply F, okay, we will just summarize our tally, or the tally column. The first interval happens to have 6, or rather 5. So we have 5 among the 50 randomly selected traveler recorded by this agency, 5 of them ages 18 to 27. And then you have 6, then you have 10, you have 15, you have 10, and then you have 4. Now, if we will get the total of this one, this is 5 plus 11, 21, 36, 46, 50. That is equals 50. Remember, our sample size is 50. That's the total now. We have 50. We have now recorded or found the frequency of the 6 class interval or classes with a total of 50 entries, and then the 50 entries refers to the 50 travelers, the age of the 50 travelers recorded by the travel agency. So we have already, we're done with the first 3 columns. Now, the next column we will have is the relative frequency. What is relative frequency? For the relative frequency, okay, the formula for this column is simply, we will get, for the relative frequency, that's relative frequency equals n, or that is the frequency for each interval divided by n times 100. Okay, that's the formula. Now, if we're going to calculate that one, the first interval is 5. The frequency is 5. Now, 5 divided by 50, because we have the number of sample is 50, that is 0.1 times 100, that is equivalent to 10%. So this is 10%. By the way, this is in percent form. Okay? So 10%, meaning to say 10% of the randomly selected, the 50 randomly selected traveler, 10% of them ages between 18 to 27 years old. And then you do the same thing for the next one, that is 6 divided by 50. So you have 12.12, or that is times 10, that is 12%. Then followed by 10 divided by 50, that is 0.2 times 100, that is 20%. And then 15 divided by 50, the third class interval, that's 0.3 times 10, 100, that is 30%. And then the same thing, that's just the same here, that's 20%. And then the 4 divided by 50, that's, or rather 4 divided by 50, that is 0.8 times 100, that is 8%. So what happened now, this is, by the way, in percent form. Percent. If we will add that all together, that's 10 plus 12 plus 20 plus 30 plus 20 plus 8. Okay, a total of 100%. By the way, the 100% here is just equivalent to 50, which is the total number of randomly selected sample for this agency. Now, you notice, if we are asked how many percent of the 50 randomly selected travelers ages 18 to 27, then you would just say there are, or it is equivalent to 10% of the randomly selected, or approximately 10% of the travelers for this season is ages 18 to 27 years old. Okay? That is for the relative frequency. Now, I think that's all for so far for this one. And then the next few columns that we will have is, we will just continue with the next few columns. If you have some questions, let me know. What are the questions and clarifications that you need? Like I said, there are other ways in how to construct this one, but this is the thing that I would like to introduce with you. Okay? So, I think that's all for now, and then we will just continue with the next part of the table in the next few more meetings. Thank you.